Your friend in Central Illinois, WHOW.
Top of the morning. Thanks for being with us. I'm your host today, Seth Lawrence. The WHOW Morning Show streams to Facebook and YouTube, brought to you by Peterson Insurance, your Pekin Insurance agent in Clinton. My guest on the Zoom today, Dr. Lisa Taylor, Superintendent of Heyworth Schools. Good morning, Dr. Taylor. How are you today?
Good morning. I'm good. How are you doing?
Doing well. Thanks for asking. Thanks for making time for us as always. It's good to have you on the program. Let's, Dr. Taylor, I've been hearing a lot of things from your peers, and I think you actually tipped me off to this. You do a great job, by the way, of just getting me on the right track of because you're one of my first interviews, kind of through.
I set the pace.
Yeah, you're the pace car for your peers on okay, what do I need to be asking these people and that sort of thing. So, but no, you tipped me off to the mandated categoricals cuts that are going to be coming to districts down the road. I guess let's start there. What do you know about that? You teased it for us last time we connected. What's going on?
Yeah, it's one of those that no additional money, it was already underfunded previously, and then no additional money in the state budget has been going there and will go there. So as your costs are going up, right, because nobody's transportation costs have gone down. In fact, most contracts have gone up over 10% or so. And then you have that same pool of money for districts. We're just hitting a bigger and bigger deficit in that fund. We just transferred $300,000 from our working cash, which is basically your savings, to transportation, just to have a tiny cushion in there. Mm-hmm. So long term, we're looking at a lot of solutions districts are. It doesn't sound like we should expect any money in there anytime soon. We have the same sort of issues in special ed. That's a mandated categorical in kind of those costs that these are things we're required to do, right? You're required to bus within a certain distance, but the state isn't funding it. So it's just one of those. You try to explain it to the board every year, right? And you estimate transportation, but with fuel prices in recent years, and of course, transportation companies' costs have gone up too, with buses, with staffing, with benefits, right? We're all paying more, and we're just going to get less.
Well, how do you make up for that in Heyworth?
Yeah, for us, we had to transfer funds for this year, and we have been doing our annual evaluation of safety hazard areas. So those are kind of areas approved by school boards and submitted to IDOT when it's unsafe for kids. And so some of those neighborhoods where the hazards were created, the village has started pouring some sidewalks. So if we have a safe walking route, we will potentially eliminate some busing next year, and that could save you $40,000 to $50,000 per bus. However, I have a new area that's probably going to need a hazard. So we're doing the best we can, but there's not a lot. We do bid out our transportation. We don't have our own here. We bid with Bloomington School District. So, and we have great transportation service. It just costs more. And so we levy the max we can with transportation, which is a 20-cent levy. So there's really no other way to draw funds to that. And we can't use sales tax funds for that, right? So we'll have to continue to take it from savings or another fund.
Of course, you mentioned that sales tax. That's a new source of revenue for Heyworth. We'll dive into in a second. I would think it would make logical sense. I know logic is in short supply in Springfield. Be that as it may, it would make logical sense to say, hey, you know what? We're not going to fund this fund at what we were doing, but we're going to give you a little more flexibility to maybe pull from 2 or 3 different options. Or am I just completely off there, Dr. Taylor?
Yeah, it would be nice if anytime you require something, there's a funding source for it, right? I mean, that's the biggest struggle is when you see these new policies and, legislation passed and it comes and you're always like, are there any dollars attached to this? Because you can't just keep adding and not expect there to be any cost with that. So, and there's really no flexibility. Transportation is very rigid, and parents depend on it, right? Mm-hmm. Everybody has jobs and, daycares have a lot of kids there. And so it's one of those things we have to get kids to school for them to learn. And so we're just going to keep looking for ways to, be as efficient as we can.
I just love Springfield sometimes. I never even thought about and it's just so simple. It's like, you have to send your kids to school, and we're going to make you do all these things, but you're going to have to find a way to pay for it. Oh, but by the way, there's restrictions on what, how you can generate money and where that money can go. And for goodness sake.
And how many kids can ride in a bus and, adding safety belts on buses every time I understand why they're needed. School buses are one of the safest modes of transportation. I understand why they're needed, but they require the belts, right? the busing company is going to pass that cost on. They have to,
They have
right?
to,
And so we just keep seeing annual increases and, you know, doing the best we can.
I guess. Yeah.
Squeeze as many kids in a seat as we can. If you see the Heyworth buses riding around with like 3 or 4 kids per seat, just look the other
Don't
way.
mind that. Just keep on going. It's good. It's good. And I don't envy you guys sometimes, because I mean, you're just, it's like you're operating with your hands tied behind your back and one eye blindfolded, I mean, it's just crazy sometimes.
Yeah, and it's so hard to explain to the general public, right? That you're kind of because they are going to get mad at school. If they lose their kids busing, that changes, 60 families' morning routine and how they're getting their kids to school. They're not going to understand everything that comes from the other side. And then on the other hand, not that we can raise transportation, but if we raise taxes more, they're upset about that. And so it's overly complicated for, as anything is that comes out of state government, but we just keep doing the best we can and try to make it easy to understand.
I love that little dig in there, as anything that comes out of state government. Well said. Well said. Dr. Lisa Taylor, superintendent of Heyworth Schools, my guest on the Zoom today. Okay, so you mentioned like that's the transportation piece, probably the biggest of the mandated categorical cuts. But I think of things like food service. How much is like a food service cut from the mandated categoricals going to impact you?
Yeah, and our food service audit is this year too. So that's one of those things where they come in and tell you, these are the 50 things that you missed that you are supposed to be compliant on. And so I just attended a workshop in Springfield for that. But food service runs at a deficit every year, right? You're restricted with the amount you can charge families. You have to have an annual increase of 10 cents. Or the district has to pick it up, which we've been doing because our food service prices, they have all these calculators that you have to run and it's based on where you live, but our food service prices are high. It's $4-ish for a school lunch. And add that into, $20 a week. If I have 3 or 4 kids, this adds up too. And so if we take more cuts there, we will just have to take them. That comes out of the education fund. So it does impact you. But it is one of those things, there's no way you can make as much money. It's not a profit running business by all means.
Mm-hmm. Sure. I had this conversation with, oh gosh, I wish I could remember who it was. It was one here. It was Mrs. Warner over in Warrensburg. She mentioned one of the things that she is experiencing is like the kids that depend on that food service, and not to have that those monies coming in is going to impact, those kids that depend on that food for their meals through the course of the day. I don't know how much of that you experience in Heyworth, but your thoughts on that, Dr. Taylor?
Yeah, it's definitely not a large population, but it's significant. We have a little over 20% of our kids are free lunch students based on income qualifications. But, you see the faces, and especially the kitchen staff sees the faces of the little ones that even if they're late to school for whatever reason, they're going straight to the cafeteria. They're kind of jumping in the bins there. We're lucky we have a really giving community and people who donate and, send food home with kids and that sort of thing. But it trickles down. And as you see these other changes with SNAP benefits, and I'm not saying there's no reason to, better monitor all that, but when it's kids don't have control over there, so they're not making the decisions, they're not able to work, right? And so at a minimum, we should be able to get their tummies full so they can focus and concentrate and, learn, obviously.
Totally. Well, Dr. Taylor, let's dive into the piece you hit on just a minute ago, the 1 cent sales tax now in effect in McLean County. You mentioned obviously that can't go to things like these mandated categoricals that are being cut, but that doesn't mean they can't help elsewhere. First of all, remind us this kind of revenue stream, what it's about, and what your how much your district is going to get, and maybe your plans for those dollars.
Sure. So it was passed last spring, and to my knowledge, before I came here 10 years ago, there had been an effort in McLean County a couple times. So it did narrowly pass McLean County, and we're estimated to get about $750,000 a year. It's based on your student enrollment. And so districts like Unit 5 are getting, 12 plus million a year. So it's significant funding source based on how the law is written and how we put it on the ballot. We can use it for capital projects. So facility upgrades, HVAC, roofing, any of those things. but also for safety and security. And so with that comes mental health support. So school resource officers, counselors, social workers. Used to, you could not use this for salaries at all. So that has added a little bit more flexibility in recent years. So we decided to do that this first year. The board had discussed, let's see what really comes in. It's kind of a weird time economically. And, originally projections were 1 million and then they were reduced to 750,000. And so we used it for about 300,000 in salaries and a couple capital projects. Bloomington Career Academy went under some renovations. We paid for that. And we are looking at just seeing how much comes in every month. So we just got our first month and it was about 90,000, which is higher than was anticipated based on the second round of projections. So if that continues, it would be closer to $1 million for Heyworth. So we're going to spend this year really looking at that and then coming up with a plan for, what do we do long term? We're in the process of looking at boilers, roofs, what are the dates of all those things, but we're also serving our community and our staff. On Friday, it will go out kind of asking them to weigh in. What do you think are the most important things to spend this money on? It's limited, but what's most important to you? And we'll take all that to the board with a recommendation later this year.
You need some more turf on your sports.
That probably won't show up as a number one.
No, but yeah, and you know what? I'll tell you what though, that is a great. I'm surprised when you told me, or when you said nearly $1 million or close to, for this revenue. That's pretty significant. So, but I mean, the nice thing is like. I would think eventually that money is going to kind of build up and build up and build up, and you'll be able to maybe put it towards a big time capital expense or project.
Yeah, I see whatever we do coming down to thirds. If it's third for capital projects or saving for future capital projects and a third property tax abatement, I think that will be in there. And then maybe a third salaries. I'm just guessing without board approval, of course. So just don't air that part.
No.
But usually it'll be some sort of combination of that. And at the same time, we're having a meeting with the villages of Heyworth and talking about just the housing shortage in McLean County and their goal of, the next 5 years or so, really expanding residential housing. That could result in, we're pretty packed in our schools. I mean, we're really just at that limit. And so that would result in an addition or something.
Yeah.
And so it'll be nice to have that there and not have to go to taxpayers and say, hey, we need 40 million for a junior high or whatever it is.
Right. Well, and on the social worker or the counselor side of things, I know you and I have talked about this a few times over the last few years, but really mental health for students was a concern at one point. I've heard some things recently that would suggest kids are doing better now, but I'm curious, what is going on that front in your schools at this point?
Yeah, it's still definitely a high need. And of course, it was just overwhelming during the pandemic and even that first year or so after. So a little bit better, but it's probably the greatest need we have. I'll be surprised if that doesn't come out as number one. As the top priority for parents, and even our teachers. I mean, you have a social worker that we purchased through a cooperative to serve special ed students required by law, by IEP minutes. And we have an additional social worker at our elementary that just really helps kids with coping skills, with identifying, I'm upset, why I'm upset, how do I talk through this, just kind of calming down, de-escalation. And we have a line and the caseloads are huge. We have a guidance counselor at the high school, but they do so many other things. So we're comparing our staffing to similar districts and how many counselors per kid do they have, how many social workers, and we're doing this survey to say, hey, here's our greatest needs. And I would really be shocked if that doesn't rise to the top.
Do you compare with your peers? I think of like Tri-Valley, Leroy, even Clinton, about not necessarily about what their staffing is like, but what their challenges are, and maybe like the numbers they're seeing of the need with that staff. Do you compare and contrast those things?
Oh yeah, we share kind of caseload information and how much and how are you. Even providing some relief for these people, because counseling and doing that is very exhausting too. So how are we giving them the support they need? A lot of us have tried to go to virtual. There's some virtual through some grants. We've gotten some options for virtual counseling. But as you know, there's a lot of permission slips and information from parents. And sometimes people just get uneasy about that. But we compare all those things. And what are you seeing? Because there are trends with kids that go around and impact other kids' mental health, right? And it's one way we can stay up on top of it in our superintendent meetings. That's often part of the conversation.
Sure. Well, going to be interesting to kind of find out where that survey comes out. You said it comes out around the 31st. How long is that going to be open for?
We will keep it open for probably 3 weeks. It will actually come out, I said Friday, but actually meant tomorrow, Friday. So it'll come out the 24th, and we'll have it open for at least 3 weeks or so. We like to get several hundred, at least, a fourth to a third of our families responding. And then, so we have a good pool of data. Staff will respond. And then we're also looking at nursing because we have one nurse for the entire district. So really trying to use all of this along with our evaluation of facilities to say, here's what we see, and here's how you can plan to spend this over the next 10 years. So we can also share it with the public. Like, you approved this tax, right? And this is what we're planning to do. We had you weigh in, that sort of thing.
I'm glad your week has gone about like mine, where you forgot tomorrow was Friday.
I don't know what day it is.
I don't. Yeah. I'm walking around half the time. Where am I? What am I doing? No, but I'm glad your week's been about the same as mine. Very good. Well, Dr. Taylor, on that note, let's break here. Come back with some more. Dr. Lisa Taylor, Superintendent of Heyworth Schools, my guest on the Zoom. We've got more with Dr. Taylor coming up on the morning show.
WHOW.
For more information on how you can donate today.
Tim Gould Farms in Henry County. He trusts Illinois Farm Bureau to have his back, and so can you.
Farm Bureau has a very large impact on...
Shane Steinberg here from Highway 51 Exchange, your equipment rental headquarters, south of Clinton on US 51. Check our banner ad on DeWittDailyNews.com to book online today and pick up tomorrow. Highway 51 Exchange.
Longview Community Bank is now open in Clinton, investing in rural Illinois. I'm Vice President Nate Sams. Stop by for a visit or to find out how we provide real local banking. Click our banner ad at the top of the local news page on DeWittDailyNews.com.
WEZC, your easy choice, 95.9 FM, is the voice of the Monticello Sages. Also streamed and archived at DeWittDailyNews.com. Hear live play-by-play football, boys and girls basketball, baseball and softball, all season long. And a best of broadcast every Saturday at noon. All brought to you by High County Collision Center, Doobson Heating and Cooling, and our exclusive sponsor of our Sages Player of the Game, the State Bank of Bement's Monticello location.
Your friend in Central Illinois. WHOW.
Once again, a good morning. Thanks for being with us. I'm your host today, Seth Lawrence. The WHOW Morning Show streams to Facebook and YouTube, brought to you by Peterson Insurance, your Pekin Insurance agent in Clinton. My guest on the Zoom today, Dr. Lisa Taylor, Superintendent of Heyworth Schools. And Dr. Taylor, I've got to make the comment. I love the fall theme on your desk back there with the pumpkin and the leaves, and then the Diet Coke sprinkled right in with it. That's fantastic.
We have little, our parents do this thing every year where it's like a secret Santa all year long, but they adopt staff members. And so sometimes you just show up and you have little hornet decorated little red ribbon on your Diet Coke and, pumpkins. It's kind of a nice treat every once in a while.
I tell you what, you folks in Heyworth do it right sometimes. That's,
I know.
Never heard of such a thing, but that's beautiful.
Yeah, and last year it did not come to school, but somebody brought me like a nice wine at Christmas time. I was like, what?
Whoa.
People are really planning ahead. I can barely get stuff from my own house.
I thought you were going to say you came to work or you had a dog or something show up at your house or something like that. That's cool.
No.
Very good. Well, hey, Dr. Taylor, what's keeping you busy lately? What's your board been working on besides trying to figure out how to spend money?
Yeah, it's
by the way, I didn't mean to say it that way. I'm so sorry.
No, I know you didn't mean it that way. It was really a lot of our conversation has been finance lately because you start the year with a budget, and I've just presented the levy for next year and really asking for a very small increase in the levy, not requiring a hearing, small enough that it won't even cover like raises to salaries and benefits. So a plan to spend down some reserves. And a lot of our conversation has been talking about ways to pay off debt early and investments. If I hear another thing about CDs and government securities, but we've spent a lot of time on that because you want to make sure you're making as much as you can off of the savings that you have.
Right. Grow your dollars. Sure.
Yeah. And then we also approved a security camera project that we've been discussing for a couple of years, especially with the additions at the stadium. We need more cameras down there and more high quality cameras. And so We've spent a lot of money on safety in the last 5 years. We do have a donor who gives us about $15,000 a year, Emily Gambrell, from her late husband's golf outing. And we've just been doing things. We put door locks on the doors where you can just lock your door down really quickly. And so we've upgraded to an app where we can take attendance and communicate with parents and staff on it in if we have to evacuate buildings. And so adding these cameras was necessary, especially at the junior senior high school, which gets the most, foot traffic, and there's a lot of kids and people here at all times.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, security is always top of mind. That is one topic that never goes away. It's always kind of front and center.
Yeah, and although we don't have a school resource officer, our village police, they're amazing. I mean, they're in our buildings every day and not just popping in and saying hi. They're in here. If they're not working something in the streets, they're in here a couple hours a day, constant meetings. I mean, they're outside of schools greeting kids, high fives. They've got an award for kids this year at the elementary school. And so the partnership with your local first responders is critical. Of course.
For sure. And, the one thing I hear in talking with school resource officers and other districts, including Clinton's, is, one of the things that interaction does is it gives the kids a good positive interaction with law enforcement. I don't know what the situation in Heyworth is, but for some kids, when law enforcement shows up, it's not always under the best circumstances.
Yeah, and if they've seen them at their home for, domestic issues or things like this, kids already have this built in, like, oh no, the police are, and this fear. And so really working through that, and our police sitting down and having lunch with kids, right? And just chatting with them in the hallways. And they work all of our games, but, they're around talking to kids, talking to families. So it's just, I think it's best to establish that relationship early on before, you are being corrected by law enforcement.
Sure. You mentioned putting up more security cameras at the new football facility. Well, I'll tell you what, you're breaking it in real nice with a 6-win team going for 7 this Friday night.
I know, it's crazy. It's been so much fun. And we have, I feel like I'm not a sport expert, so, but I feel like we're deeper than usual. We have a lot of options with kids. And, looking back over the past 2 summers, I mean, especially this summer, I was like, are these kids here full time? Like, in the summer, you're always thinking, oh, we're going to get a break. We have so many camps and things. But in addition to that, I would come into 200 kids at a camp, but football kids in here every day grinding. And I think they've really bought into Coach Godfrey's program. They're really excited. They're positive. They're doing great things. They're having success, right? And what a year to do it when we have a new stadium and turf and hopefully getting to host, this first round. This whole community is at every game anyway. So I don't know what we're going to do for parking, but we'll figure that out later.
Hey, good problem to have, right?
Yeah, exactly. And the support, behind the kids and to see that kind of excitement. Volleyball's doing very well too. They're playing in conference right now. All 3 teams have had a 20-win season.
Wow.
So sports are just in a really good place.
I don't want to, make a shameless plug, but I will. We're going to have Coach Godfrey on our playoff show Saturday night. So looking forward to that. So folks can hear him on our coverage of the high school playoff pairing stuff. So
good. Don't tell him my analogy of why we're doing so.
I'm going to play it. I'm going to play it for him and have him give me a breakdown of how you did. Dr. Taylor, how do you folks learn more about all things Heyworth Schools?
Yeah, we've just updated our website, so I would encourage everyone to check it out. It's HUSD4.org, and we do have, of course, social media, Facebook, and we've got a new Instagram. So
there you go.
Reach out.
That is Dr. Lisa Taylor, Superintendent of Heyworth Schools. My guest on the Zoom Network News comes your way now.